Guys, if there's one thing that the military teaches you to do better than anything else on earth, it's go on an angry rant. That's right, guys. It's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and caffeine addict. And today, we are doing maybe the most requested video on this channel. This is Zach's Gun Rants Part 1. Now, be warned, this is 45 minutes of gun-based rants. So, I'm not going to get through them all, but we're going to do as much as we can. And don't worry, the gun rant lore goes deep, and I will dive into it with you. Let's get into it.
So I'm gonna go on a slight rant about guns here.
No one likes it when you do that. Keep it in your pants.
There is absolutely no reason to make a light infantry weapon that is in 308 full auto. It is pointless.
Why not?
Let's say you're gonna shoot at that right there on the car.
Okay.
By round 3, you're up here.
Okay, because it's a powerful kick, you mean?
Yes, especially on a G3, which is roller delayed blowback. It is an incredibly violent recoil.
Okay, now I wonder if you could design a better muzzle brake that will prevent some of that rise. That's, seems possible. But yeah, a 308 is a big round. That is a full rifle round that was designed, right, it was designed at the slightly after the 30-06 round, right? But those were meant to be full rifle rounds to engage targets at 600 to 1,000 meters, right? It was meant to be a soldier in a trench and looking out at the charging Hun, laying down sort of area fire, right? So it has no business in a modern infantry rifle. As a machine gun, yeah, it's really very effective and worth it. But as a modern as a infantry rifle, it's just too big around. It punches too hard. Guys, I wanted to thank today's video sponsor, Nova Empire. Nova Empire is a mobile multiplayer space warfare strategy game where you build out your base, your fleet, and grow your domain. It has really deep play mechanics with over 30 facility types and over 20 classes of ship, ranging, of course, from nimble gunships all the way up to massive dreadnoughts. Each one is customizable with unique weapons, armor, and reactors to suit your fleet's strategy. And like the real world, of course, your choice of officers to command your fleet can make a huge difference. Each admiral brings unique perks and benefits, so choosing the right one for your fleet's strategy is essential. However, the best thing about Nova Empire is the community. The number one thing military veterans report that they miss about serving isn't the bad food or the goofy uniforms, it's the camaraderie, working together with your battle buddies to accomplish the mission. Nova Empire has a huge veteran and military community because it understands this. Through the Alliance and Legion system, you can pool your fleet's resources to defend one another's fleets and bases and grow the Alliance's territory. The Legion system actually provides daily missions for parties of Alliance members to tackle and earn rewards. Right? So you definitely want to click the link down below to download Nova Empire, right? As an exclusive offer to Combat Veteran Reacts members, Nova Empire is giving viewers who download via my link, via the QR code, an in-game gift pack worth over $300, right? So you want to be sure to check out Nova Empire today. Thanks again to Nova Empire for sponsoring this video.
What if you found a way to suppress the recoil? Then it would make sense, wouldn't it?
Not really, because it's kind of hard unless your rifle is just really, really heavy.
So you're saying any weapon with automatic fire that has recoil is bad, huh?
No, just 308.
Right, it's too big around.
Anytime I fired a G3 on full auto, I had to brace myself in like the weirdest way possible just to be able to get multiple rounds on target.
Maybe it's just because you're weak.
The problem was they started making, in like the 1950s and 60s, they started making all of these infantry weapons in 308 and then making them full auto because they were like, oh, well, we'll just put it on a bipod and then we can use it in full auto. But the problem is nobody would ever put them on the bipods. They would just shoot them on full auto and then wouldn't hit anything.
Yeah, I mean, here, and this is sort of, there's always this lag effect between what designers think the war of the future will be like and what it is, right? So, again, if you're talking about the 50s and 60s, they were thinking to themselves, what would be the most badass weapon in the Second World War? And in the era where most engagements, most light infantry engagements were bolt action rifles taking on bolt action rifles, right? The exception kind of being the Garand. It would be pretty decisive to be able to shoot semi-automatic and then in a pinch when you really needed to drop some serious firepower to go fully automatic. Or to convert it into like a mini machine gun with a bipod, right? But that assumes a certain type of infantry engagement is taking place. And by, Korea a little bit, but really by Vietnam, you saw that the dynamic of light infantry combat was a lot more mobile. And so this idea that you were going to have this relatively static position, you were going to deploy a bipod, you could carry a really heavy weapon, and you would have ready access to resupply was all proven to be false, right? If you had to hump it out in the bush in the jungle in the 60s, or you were in one of the colonial wars in Africa, right, you were going to be a long way from your support. So the ammo you had to fire was carried on your back. And a 308 round, right, let's say it weighs twice what a 223 round does. Well, if you multiply that by the thousands of rounds you would need to patrol for 2 weeks in the bush, right, now you're talking about a lot of extra weight on your back.
The FAL is a little bit better, but that's only because its fire rate is higher, so you can kind of get one more round on target before it goes whap all the way into the sky. That's why I'm happy that it's semi-auto. This gun looks really good, though. I do like the G3.
You like the sleek design, or you like the way they perform?
I think they look cool. It's a Mossberg 590.
Is that a good weapon or not?
I personally am not a big fan of Mossberg 590. I like the Remington 870 better, but...
I have an 870.
What do you prefer about the Remington over the Mossberg?
Steel receiver as opposed to an aluminum receiver of the Mossberg. Also, the Mossbergs feel kind of clanky.
Is it significant difference or a slight difference?
No, it's barely any difference. It's personal preference.
Yeah, I actually like the safety more on the Mossberg because I'm a left-handed firer. So the ambidextrous safety to me is more intuitive, right? I know some firers, it's like you hold it in your left hand, you push it out. I just don't care for it, right? In fact, okay, let's see if I get demonetized. I actually, as a like home defense weapon, I store it basically within Israeli safety where it's one pump away from being hot. That's the safety. And I just keep it safety off because it's not safety off. It's just a different safety mechanism that's more intuitive to me, i.e. put round in chamber.
So it's basically the same thing as a Remington then?
Kind of. The bolt is a little different and some of the other stuff. The barrel shroud is just a heat shield.
So prevents it from overheating?
No, it keeps you from putting your hand on the barrel when it's real hot.
Oh, so it's a barrel guard?
Yeah, heat shield. I had a guy come in one day and was like, hey, you got any of those shotguns with a cheese grater on them?
Cheese grater?
I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you got a shotgun with a cheese grater on it. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Why would you put a cheese grater in a shotgun, you idiot? And then I realized that he wanted a shotgun with a heat shield.
Was he using his rifle to carve up cheese?
I don't know, probably.
Is that why he needed a new one?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a 15-minute conversation with the average gun owner in America is the best argument for gun control.
Mossberg 590. Pretty cool. I like it.
Did the Germans or the Russians invent it?
No, it's an American shotgun.
Oh, so it was made by Heckler and West.
Oh, Jesus Christ! He's just trolling at this point, right? He's just trolling. It's Remington. Remington is an American company. They've been around since the 1900s. In fact, they actually had a contract to make Soviet Mosin-Nagant rifles during the Russian Civil War in the 1920s.
Sten?
No, it was made by Mossberg.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Remington, mine, Mossberg, competitor.
Where are you even getting this from?
How vain do you have to be to name your rifle after yourself?
Nah, you name your rifle after your company.
It was Mossberg and Sons. This is the name of the company.
Did they invent it in the year 590?
I don't know.
You don't know? Yes, they did then.
No, they didn't invent it in the year 590. The Mossberg 590's been around since, I don't know, the 60s, 70s maybe?
Why did they call it the Mossberg 1960s?
I have no idea, because different companies name their guns different things. Glocks are named after what patent number it is. That's why the Glock 17 is the 17. It has nothing to do with mag size. If anybody tells you that the Glock 17 is named that because it holds 17 rounds in the magazine, they don't know what they're talking about.
No, I think we were right.
I mean, yeah. You know, actually, Glocks are the most popular firearm. A Glock 19, actually, is the most popular firearm in the entire United States.
Right, the Mossberg 590.
So when people talk about, like, ooh, my survival rifle would have this or that or the other thing, guess what? The best survival gun is going to be the one that you can find parts and ammo for. And the sad answer is, that's a Glock 17 and a Remington 700, and honestly, a Mossberg 500 or a Remington 870. That's it.
Yeah.
And an AR-15, right? The things you can find in, I mean, honestly, there are probably multiple copies of that gun in my apartment building, just statistically, right? 700 Americans, you know, yeah, you're going to see at least one.
After 589 failed attempts at getting a patent.
No! You're wrong.
I'm not
They're really, he's just triggering Zach, and it's hilarious.
sure the differences between a muzzle brake and a choke, sadly.
Is he going to explain it?
Choke
Okay.
is basically a very shallow funnel that you put on the inside of the barrel that's going to compress the shot and the wadding before it leaves the barrel.
So it pretty much makes the shotgun shell a slug of sorts?
No, it just keeps it more tightly clustered together.
Yeah, like a slug.
No, because it's still going to open up the moment it leaves the barrel.
Oh, so it's just a delayed explosion. What does the other thing do?
Man, he's really. This is exactly the level of intellect that the Marine Corps, that I believe the Marine Corps puts out.
Then.
A muzzle brake just vents the exhaust gases out the side of the barrel.
I knew it! Putting holes in your weapon makes it better!
No, it doesn't. Oh my god. Technically, you're correct. Yes.
That's the best kind of correct!
Technically, putting.
So the other thing, he may not get to it, that goes on the end of a barrel is a flash suppressor. A flash suppressor doesn't really achieve the same effect. Sometimes they kind of like sort of will do the same thing, but a flash suppressor, flash hider, is a combat device designed to make it harder to see the flash of a round being expelled from the weapon. I've definitely seen in Afghanistan where literally you can't see the enemy, but you can see the muzzle flash of the rounds being shot at you, and that is good enough. Because if you can see the muzzle flash, right, it's because you're looking down the barrel. So that is your cue to shoot back.
Putting holes in the end of your barrel does mitigate recoil somewhat, but not putting holes in it willy-nilly.
You never know until you try!
Oh my god, Mike. Behold, Mike!
I mean, the AKM actually has a muzzle brake that's just literally a slant, like cut in it like this. It's the most janky muzzle brake you can imagine, but it's kind of effective.
Mateba Model 6 Unica!
Never heard of that gun before.
It's a revolver, and its name means you are unique.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the gun's creator telling the gun that it was unique.
That also sounds like a gun nut move.
Fun fact about the Mateba Model 6 Unica, it fires out of the bottom cylinder.
Oh, so not at the top cylinder like most revolvers?
Yep, fires out of the bottom cylinder.
That's pretty weird.
Also, it's a semi-automatic revolver.
So it's not necessarily good, it's just different for the sake of being different.
Well, having it fire out of the bottom cylinder is a good thing because it reduces flip up.
then why don't all of them do that?
Because it requires a lot more work and you gotta kind of move shit around a lot.
So it's not necessarily better.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's a lot of good ideas, but like the Glock is unique in that it was a really good idea that was unique for its time and also really, really, really effective, right? In contrast, you see a lot of these like good idea weapons, you know, like the one that has the magazine going in the side, right? There's a whole bunch, but they seem conceptually good because they solve one problem, but you solve one problem and you create like 15 others, right? It's like sort of it's like playing Tetris, right? You can't just like drop pieces to fill holes. You have to have this vision of the whole board and how dropping one piece may create issues down the line. That's sort of like what's going on with, I imagine, this revolver and a lot of these neat concept guns. That's why a lot of firearms, the best that's why many of the world's best firearms are just iterative like processes, right? They're the 15th iteration. That's why look at the AK base, right? That's a basic action and style of weapon that, frankly, the Russia's been using for almost half a century and just been marginally improving areas. They figure out with lots of data, they figure out where the failure points are, where the issues are, how to improve it, how to make it more prepared for combat in the modern era. Same with the M16, M4 platform. It's just been around for so long that instead of trying to build this brand newfangled thing from the ground up, which the military keeps trying to do and failing, you're almost better off just iteratively making the rifle better and better and better as it's used more and you learn more about what you need to do to improve it.
Yeah, it's a revolver that uses gas pressure of the cartridge firing to cock the hammer back, so it fires on single action every shot.
Why would a 6-shot single-action revolver be semi-automatic?
It just cocks the
Yeah. It can't. This single action and semi-automatic are opposite. It's like flipping a coin and saying, well, it landed heads and tails. It doesn't make sense, right? It has to be one or the other.
hammer back every time.
Oh, so
Now you can fire a semi-automatic pistol if they have an exposed hammer. You can fire it as single action. When I qualified for the German Armed Forces Proficiency Badge, you have to do a pistol qual course, and I believe, if I remember correctly, the rules were just 5 rounds, put them downrange. Well, I was the only person who actually cocked the hammer back on my stinking Beretta, and so I was 5 for 5 because it was a double action every time.
so you don't have to recock it.
Yes, you don't have to pull the hammer back every single time.
Oh, well, that sounds great. Why don't all revolvers do that?
Because it's really complicated. It's a lot of extra work and a lot of extra parts to put into a gun, so it didn't really catch on. Also, it looks weird.
I mean, it looks weird, and remember, every extra part is another part that can break, or come undone, or come loose, or have its tolerances fail, or warp, or have a manufacturing flaw, right? That's why some of the best weapons in the world are designed. Again, I look at the AK platform. This is something that has extremely simple machinable parts, right? It can be made in even the most simple of weapons shops, right? Or machine shops. And that's by design. It's meant to have very loose tolerances, right? So it can fire, even though a lot of the parts you can have, a millimeter or two of manufacturing flaw, and the weapon will still operate just fine. It's honestly a pretty cool marvel of engineering when you think about it for what it is, which is a tough, incredibly easy to manufacture, high potency military firearm.
Weird is cool.
If you want a Mateba, you pretty much just have to get a Chiappa Rhino, because Matebas are almost impossible to find. They get a premium.
I believe it. I've never even heard of the Mateba.
I think its biggest claim to fame is that it was in the Ghost in the Shell movie from like the 1980s.
The Ghost in the Shell movie, that was actually pretty good. Like a little high philosophy.
Also, a whole 12 people saw it.
Wow, man. Way to just completely crap on my childhood.
Oh, the Mateba. Yes, that weapon was featured in episode 14 of The Snorks. What new weapon are you using now?
This is the Beretta M92 FS.
Isn't that the standard issue police weapon?
No, standard issue, it was the...
Nice.
Stop resisting! Gun! I'm gonna go through ammo for this thing pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, if you keep spraying it like that.
Well, it takes a lot of bullets to take one of those things down. You ever try to kill a plant with a gun? It's not very effective.
That's a good point.
Next time you try to weed your front lawn, try using a pistol to do it. The entire time I was in the military, I was like, man, the M9's a piece of garbage. Why would anybody use this hunk of junk? And then when I got out of the military, I was like, man, the M9's awesome. I love this handgun.
Maybe that's not...
Nope, still hate it. Still hate it with a passion. With a passion. There's some things that I appreciate. I appreciate its ambidextrous safety. But no, I hate the weight of it. I hate the sights. I hate its delicate disassembly, that trigger spring. There's just so much about it that's bad. It was hastily designed, right? And it's bad when the Afghan police and military forces, when they decided what weapon to issue them, they didn't even look at the military's M9. Instead, they gave them all SIGs and Glocks. And frankly, they were carrying superior weapons to us, which was sort of offensive.
Not a testament to the weapon's strength.
I think the main problem is that in the military, it's a military issued one, so it's not exactly well made, and also,
That's suspicious.
it's not exactly well made. It's used by soldiers who beat the crap out of it. It's all old parts. Also, I feel like the M9 is a great civilian handgun, but a terrible, oh my god, do not prove my point here, combat handgun. It's got too many parts. Good lord. What is happening?
Man, he is a terrible exterminator.
Die!
Dale Gribble, he is not.
Die! Die! Help! Help!
Melee, just melee it.
Help me!
So it's not only a bad herbicide, but a bad pesticide as well. Oh, what are you using now?
This is the AN-94. They put pulleys in it so that it fires one round, then the barrel starts recoiling backwards, and then it fires the second round. So you get 2 rounds firing out of it before the recoil impulses hit the shooter.
Did they invent that before gas pistons were a thing?
It was an attempt to increase the hit probability of, hang on, the hit probability of the average soldier.
Did it
What?
work? Did they succeed?
Yeah, except that the gun is incredibly complicated and very expensive, so it was...
See, again, you focus on one concept and you can achieve it, but you end up, having traded off so many other valuable things.
adopted by the Russian military for about a day, and then it wasn't. Yeah, I like the rear sight on the AN-94, it's cool.
It looks like it's lopsided.
It is, it's kind of off to the side, but you rotate this little piece right there to whatever range you're aiming at.
Oh,
Yeah, that's one of the neater things. You know what's funny is that the classic M16 iron sights have the same feature where you can adjust the range, and not once did anyone in the entire US Army ever tell me how to actually adjust the range on my sights, which is strange. No one ever even told me that's what it was for. Right? It wasn't until I became a civilian and I learned about some of the other World War II era rifles that the idea of an adjustable sight that would let you hit targets accurately out to distance became really important information.
you hold it like a gangster sideways so the
No,
sight straight side up.
No, it's the correct way, it's just the sight is just there.
Look at it. I can see it. It's crooked.
It's not crooked, I'm looking through this top part of it right here, and then it's got an angle like that, so when you rotate it, it's always in the correct position. Yes, it's weird. It's a weird gun. That's why I grabbed it, because it's weird.
Weird doesn't mean useful. Weird doesn't mean it's good.
By definition, right, if when the AK first came out, right, it was not something that any other military had adopted. I think maybe they had sort of screwed around with things like the FAL, there was the BAR, but this weapon, right, would have been weird because it was a small caliber, had this gigantic magazine. For its time, it looked so weird. But because it was just forward thinking, now we view it as normal, or sort of an archetypal weapon right there with the M4 or the M16, right? But it took time to get there. The problem is that nobody knows which gun designs are going to be weird and which ones will become the standard, right? And sometimes you just got to field them and roll them out and see what happens.
Do you have a lot of ammo that you want to get rid of quickly? Do you have a bunch of enemies that you want to throw lead at as fast as humanly possible? Do you hate that guy over there and you want him to be just absolutely suppressed for the next 3.5 minutes? Then buy the PKM light machine gun. Standing for words in Russian that I don't understand, PKM is an acronym. Using a long-stroke gas operating system with an open bolt assembly, the PKM is capable of throwing large amounts of ammunition at approximately anywhere from 650 all the way up to 800 rounds per minute.
Point the barrel at the thing you want to die, squeeze the trigger, and death comes out.
Yes, pretty much.
Would your
Yeah, good old PKMs, a true area light machine gun. Interestingly, they fire a 7.62 by 54 rimmed cartridge. That is, the cartridge itself has a little rim around it. YouTube will demonetize me if I show you, but I have all sorts of rounds. I have military surplus rounds in 7.62 by 54R and hunting rounds, right? But what's unique is that they actually have at the back of the weapon like a little lip, and that's meant to make it easier to chamber it. But this is a round that was designed in the 1880s, right? And but because that's what the Soviet Union had, that's what they were told to design their machine guns around. That was the rifle round. And so, sure enough, they did. They figured out a way to treat a rimmed cartridge into a machine gun, which is, you know, again, given the PKM's reliability, functionality, and lethality, it's pretty impressive that they were able to take a cartridge which is outdated and make it so very lethal.
You dropped that Steyr AUG in the water?
I dropped it and I don't know where it went.
Oh no! It's too bad.
God. I can't talk about it anymore if I don't have a visual aid.
Yeah, you could just talk about how much you love the matsuba again.
Yep, that is a Mauser broomhandle.
Also known as the Type 22, yes? You mentioned that the Chinese name all their weapons type number.
Yeah, they do, and I don't know what the Chinese nomenclature for this pistol is. So.
I thought it was Type 22, but maybe I'm getting my types confused.
I don't know, there's so many.
Type 22 would make sense, right? The Mauser broomhandle designed in the 1910s, so I think the Chinese would have copied it in the 1920s, but it may be later than that.
I can't remember the names of all of them. They used it in World War I, and it was outdated in World War I.
What's not great about it?
In 1914, this pistol was outdated.
What made it outdated? The fact that it only holds, what, 12 shots?
The real one holds, I think, 10 rounds. It's an internal magazine that you cannot remove. You have to load it with stripper clips.
Wait, what? You...
Yeah. This is what makes it suck, right? You imagine you're in the trenches of World War II. There's mud and dirt everywhere, and maybe this will be his rant, and I'm stealing it. But you have to load a gun with a stripper clip, right? One, it's a pistol, so everything is smaller and more precise. It doesn't have a rifle's ability like a rifle's clearances. You have to open up the internal parts of the gun, shove a bunch of rounds in with your finger, and then close it again.
Oh, that sounds terrible!
So then you have to take a stripper clip, which is just a long piece of metal with a bunch of bullets in it, and then push all the bullets down into the magazine with your thumb. And if you do it wrong, the bolt will close on your thumb.
Sounds so fun!
I like the BAR. I'm not a big fan of this specific model. I think this is the BAR A2, technically, and I'm not a big fan of the A2.
What's the difference?
So the original BAR was substantially lighter. It had a bipod, but the bipod was removable. On the A2, they made the bipod non-removable, and it's freaking heavy. They also put a magazine adapter on it, which is also heavy.
There you go.
See that little thing on the top of it? The little curved portion that's kind of sticking the wrong direction? That's the safety.
That's a weird way to have a safety.
Yeah. The safety mechanism literally is the dust cover that you close it, and it keeps
What weapon? Who would design that?
things from getting in there. And it also keeps the bolt from moving forwards.
Neat.
Also, there's no charging handle on this submachine gun. You just shove your finger into the ejection port and pull the bolt back.
You don't need to charge it. It's not an energy weapon.
Oh, God.
Loading handle, Mike.
You want to debate guns for a while with someone who doesn't know anything about guns? Or you want to do some bounty hunting?
Fine, let's do some bounty hunting.
Tell me about the Steyr AUG before you kill all of them.
Well, the Steyr AUG, AUG is technically an acronym for Army Universal Gewehr, and it was first adopted by the Austrian military in 1977, so its original name was the STG-77, which stands for Sturmgewehr 77. Yes, it's a very good rifle. It was very futuristic at the time of its release.
But it's not so much anymore. It does look...
It's still a pretty advanced automatic rifle.
I've never shot a Steyr AUG, but it seems really cool.
Steyr AUG has what's called a progressive trigger, at least on the military models.
Ah, so it's very open towards gay marriage.
Also, yes, but the trigger, when you pull it back a little bit until it clicks the first time, that's when it fires single shot. But if you pull it back all the way, it fires fully automatic. Another interesting fact about the Steyr AUG is that it is used by both the Austrians and the Australians.
So now it doesn't matter if you get those two confused.
Yes, exactly. The ones that's used by the Australians is technically called the Osteyr, though. The Steyr AUG was the first bullpup to be adopted by a military. Well, it was the first bullpup to be widely adopted by a military. I think technically there was one before that, but it...
Okay, so a bullpup just means that you have, in a rifle, right, you have the barrel, you have the chamber, and then you have sort of under the chamber, almost always under the chamber, is where the magazines feed. Then you have, of course, your trigger and your buttstock. Well, somebody said, hey, there is no reason that the trigger has to be behind the chamber, right? And so what you did is you shortened your rifle by a lot by having the magazine and chamber here and the trigger forward and then the barrel. So the result was a really compact rifle that still had a barrel length as long as a conventional rifle. The Chinese adopted their service rifle for, I think it was like 10 or 15 years, was their own. It was like a QBZ something, bullpup style rifle. But here's the problem with the bullpups. One, if you're a left-handed firer, which remember, 10% of the average fighting force is going to be left-handed, right? Those rounds are going to eject right here into your face, right? But also, like, stuff can get caught into that barrel very easily. Or if you have it up close against you, you can actually like prevent the round from ejecting, causing feeding issues. You also run into these problems because with the trigger so far ahead, it's a lot of parts to make that sort of mechanism work, right? From trigger to firing pin has to go back down the rifle. Again, not a showstopper, but it became sort of an issue for that. Really for that. Anyway, the point is that even the Chinese, who designed a homegrown bullpup rifle, went back recently to something that looks a lot like an M4.
It doesn't really count because it was adopted by Britain for about 5 minutes and then wasn't adopted anymore. The first time I fired a Steyr AUG, it was one of the full auto ones, and the Austrians didn't tell me about the progressive trigger for it. Sorry, Australians. The Australians didn't tell me about the progressive trigger for it. So I'm just kneeling down in the firing range. I get behind this thing. I get it all scoped up, and I pull the trigger. I go, man, this trigger's really heavy. And I jerk it all the way back, and it goes... Then they laughed at me. So yeah, the Steyr AUG is my favorite bullpup, other than a FAMAS, which you basically cannot get a FAMAS in the United States. There's, I think, a total of maybe 400 that exist in the US.
Wait, only 400 FAMASs?
Yeah, there's only like 400 that exist.
Why not more?
So the FAMAS was imported for a very short period of time before there was a ban on importing weapons. So there's only like 400 semi-automatic FAMASs that exist in the US.
So that must be a collector's treasure, huh?
Yes, they contract a premium $20,000.
Wow.
Ooh, buddy. Wow. Talk about impractical. That point, I mean, you got to wonder though, right? What they often will do now is do what's called 80%, right? Where you can purchase basically you can purchase all the parts of a firearm that make it a non-firearm, and then you can manufacture it at home. But you have to register the newly manufactured gun with the ATF. You have to give it a serial number. You've got to comply with your laws. But the point is, if you have... usually this is for extremely picky collectors, sort of like building a PC, right? Where if you have something very specific that you want, you can get the parts and then assemble it yourself. But I'm surprised there's no FAMAS parts kits. And maybe there are.
You can't legally purchase them outside of the ones that are already here?
No, you can't, because the ones that were imported are the only ones that are ever going to be imported. God, I gotta get a new barrel for this thing. This rifling is just mad fucked.
You couldn't just zero it in, huh?
No, it's got terrible rifling on it.
Maybe you should keep better care of it.
Oh yeah, I'll just repair the rifling on my barrel, Mike.
You make it sound like that's a difficult thing to do, but I have no idea.
That's an impossible thing. Do we have access to a hammer forge, Mike? Where's your hammer forge? Why don't you just knock out a new barrel for your gun?
Got a workbench over here. It's close enough.
Does that look like a hammer forge to you?
Maybe the stove could
It's a stove.
function as a hammer forge.
That looks like an Uzi.
That triggered an armorer. That was a mad armorer. Ooh, God. All right, we got time for a couple more.
Uzi to me. Israeli Military Industries Uzi.
Watch out.
Uzi is one of the better submachine guns. A lot of different militaries actually ended up adopting it. think the U.S. had it for a while.
Have you fired an Uzi before?
I have.
Did you enjoy the experience?
It's all right.
When I hear submachine gun, I think at least 50 rounds in the clip.
Magazine.
The sub in submachine gun is actually indicative of the caliber.
Right. A light machine gun has a rifle-sized caliber.
Sub-caliber weapon, so it's smaller than rifle caliber. Oh! Speaking of submachine guns that were available around the same time, I just found a Sten gun.
My name's Stan, here's my gun.
So this is one of the
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, the Sten gun with the side-mounted magazine, right?
other... This is one of the other submachine guns that was widely available around the time of the Uzi.
Is the magazine in there sideways?
Yes, it is. The magazine pokes out of the side.
It's not a handguard. It's not a thing you're supposed to grip.
So the Sten gun is really cool because basically Britain in World War II, before the US got formally involved, was so short on weapons that they had to figure out how they could make, using just the industries local to Britain in World War II, a firearm that they could issue to troops, right? Had a lot of Enfields, didn't have a lot else. So literally you can see, if you're like, wow, this thing looks like it was cobbled together from pieces of pipe, that's because it was, right? They have these extremely basic. The bolt is extremely basic. You can see the entire thing slides back and forth as it's fired.
Most soldiers would just hold on to the magazine well.
Yeah.
Shot it. The only submachine guns that were, again, widely available were things like the MP-18 and the Thompson submachine gun. Submachine guns that were quite large, pretty dang heavy, and expensive to manufacture because it required a lot of machining. The Sten gun, by comparison, is made basically out of a tube with a couple holes cut into it, a barrel, and then pressed pieces of sheet metal.
It's basically a pipe gun.
At the time they were making these things, they could probably knock out about 5 of them in an hour.
Nice.
They could just slam these things together incredibly fast. The only complaint people had about them is if you're carrying one on a sling, there's really no good way to carry it. The sights bang into your stomach, and also it doesn't want to sit like that, so it keeps trying to roll over. If you carry it the other direction, the charging handle slams into your stomach. And if you carry it with the magazine pointing up, the trigger jams into your stomach. So there's no good way to carry this submachine gun.
And that's why it fell out of service and was replaced by the M16.
That's not remotely true.
No, it fell out of service because machine guns like the Uzi started coming about. And while this thing is a really good, incredibly cheap submachine gun that you can knock out thousands of them very quickly, it isn't that accurate.
Yeah, it's because the barrel's like this big.
You can still find these things damn near everywhere. I found tons of them when I was in Iraq. Ones that were built in like the 40s and still were being used.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one that was turned into me that had a built-in suppressor.
How do you make a built-in suppressor?
Basically, you drill a bunch of holes in the barrel and you add a suppressor to the end of it. I had one that had been camouflage painted, had an integral suppressor, and somebody had bolted a rail to the top and attached a laser sight to it.
A laser sight? A laser sight to a suppressed weapon. Think for a minute. Think. You suppress a weapon so that it can be stealthy. But with a laser sight, everyone will see what you're aiming at. They're at odds with each other. This sounds like classic Saddam Hussein's Iraq, because he had the Republican Guard, who had the best equipment, and were ostensibly the best trained, but they weren't like modern elite units who are selected based on their competence as soldiers. They were selected based on the most important trait to a dictator: loyalty to him. Right? So these were cronies who got a primo job. So when they got these cool looking guns, right, they probably didn't care what its tactical purpose was. They followed the rule of cool. Integral suppressor, laser sight, gee whiz, looking cool, you know, just operator out this gun to your heart's content.
To it.
A laser sight on a pistol that's 80 years old.
Yeah, on a submachine gun.
When you were taking inventory of these weapons, did you have to mark down details like that on the notes page?
Nope, I just remembered that.
Traumatized. Yeah, look, that's actually how it looks. And yeah, tell me that thing doesn't look like it's just a couple of pieces of pipe and some like rebar that's been bent into shape.
And they actually made, I think, 4 or 5 different stocks.
What stock? It looks like someone jammed a hanger in there.
Yeah, it's pretty much just a piece of wire. It was made to be cheap. Like I said, this gun was made to be cheap.
Yeah. Task accomplished,
It's
I
an
guess.
incredibly simple, cheap gun that was designed to arm Britain's soldiers with some type of submachine gun that didn't cost, at the time, one Thompson submachine gun cost as much as about 10 of these. This is a really good option.
For those of you keeping track at home, that would be like being able to turn out something roughly comparable to an M4 for about $60. Maybe closer to like 30.
It would be a better option if it were more accurate.
Doesn't really matter. Submachine guns are designed to be used at about 50 yards, and that's it.
Yeah, spray and pray guns.
Pretty much.
All right, guys. Ooh, we're gonna do the Uzi next, dude. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are as well. Guys, first off, thanks to Nova Empire for sponsoring this video. Second, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to see more gun rants, more firearms related content, let me know in the comments. Also, you know, I'm just going to point it out there. There's a rumor that old Zach Hazard and I may be able to get together for a chat. So if you have questions that you think he and I should talk about, man, you just let them know in the comments, or better yet, let me know in the Discord. All right, guys, that's all I had. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.